these reports of children having numbers written on their bodies, on their arms?
It's the first time I've heard about the numbers being written, but this metering strategy in which Border Patrol guards are placed in the middle of the bridge and turn away anyone who's seeking asylum, anyone who doesn't have a visa or passport. I saw this myself at McAllen, Hidalgo port of entry. And this is in violation of U.S. law. It's in violation of international law because people have a right to assert asylum when they come to the border. And the irony here is the administration has been telling the world, we don't want people to cross between ports of entry. We want them to come to ports of entry. But then they come to ports of entry and they are rejected on the bridge and sent back into Mexico. Sometimes they're sheltered, sometimes they're not. They're extremely vulnerable being sent back with no support structure back in Mexico.
What Senator Merkley is describing is your classic catch-22 situation where these people are told, go to a border crossing, and then when they go there and they've already gone through an arduous, dangerous journey, then they're told, sorry, no room at the inn. And so, and as to the numbers being written down, this just goes to show the administration's attitude toward immigrants, that they're not human beings. We are dealing with human beings. We are dealing with young children. And that's what this administration needs to get across. And this is what the people of our country need to understand is these are human beings who want to have a chance at a better life in our country. And we should give them that chance. Yeah. That's the law, by the way.
And Maria Teresa, I want to play you one more piece of sound. I'll let you respond also to the numbers being written on children's arms, which is pretty shocking to look at. But I want to play you Hogan Gidley. I think you and I both might know Hogan.
Yes.
Typically a pretty good guy who's now working for the administration. Here he is responding to this death of this little girl, of Jacqueline Call. Take a listen.
It's a sad time, but it's also senseless. It's a needless death, and it's 100% preventable. If we could just come together and pass some common sense laws to disincentivize people from coming up from the border and encourage them to do it the right way, the legal way, then those types of deaths, those types of assaults, those types of rapes, the child smuggling, the human trafficking, that would all come to an end, and we hope Democrats join the president.
It's tough to see somebody that you know is speaking in this way, towing the line, obviously, but what do you make of the seeming kind of callousness of the way that the administration has responded to the death of this little girl and their attitude toward those who are legally seeking asylum at the border?
Well, let's be clear. Secretary Nielsen basically is saying that it's nobody's fault but that of the person trying to make desperate choices during desperate times. But she and the president have created this directive. They are closing ports of entry where people can actually present themselves legally. They are basically telling people disingenuously that they have to turn back because the country is full. They are tear-gassing families as they are trying, again, to do it the right way. So they are forcing these individuals to seek and come into our border. So when Secretary Nielsen is saying that there is no other way, she is not leveling with the American people. Most other administrations, they have allowed people to cross legally, and then they provide people with ankle bracelets so that they can come back and hear their fair day in court. Let the courts decide. But this is nonsense. This is complete fodder for the base, and unfortunately it's harming individuals. So I would love to know what we can expect from a new Congress where we can actually hold these individuals accountable.
Very quickly before we go, Senators, will there be hearings on this? We know that there's been a statement from Nancy Pelosi saying all Americans grieve the tragic death of a young girl whose family sought a future of freedom and safety for her in our country. As Homeland Security Inspector General opens an investigation into the innocent child's death, the Congress will also investigate this horrific tragedy to ensure the safety and security of every child. So we can expect the House to take action and have hearings, but the Senate is still controlled by the president's party. In your view, Senators, will there be hearings on this in the Senate?
I have called for them.
Go ahead.
Both of us have called for such hearings. My hope is that when the House, thankfully in Democratic control, so there's at least a level of checks and balances here, where they have their hearings, and what comes out of those hearings will put a lot of pressure on the Senate to do something also.
Yeah.
No, it is an absolute shame. It's unacceptable that the Republican leadership has not held hearings in the Senate or in the House at this point. The Republicans have been okay with this horrific implementation of tragedy against children, inflicting trauma on children as a political strategy. I've had many of my colleagues, our colleagues, come up and say, I really don't like what's going on. And I say, can you stand up publicly and put some pressure on this? They say, well, maybe I can whisper to some of Trump's staff that I don't like it. That's not enough. We need to stand together as Americans with the symbol of the Statue of Liberty and say people need to be treated with respect and decency as they await their asylum hearings.
Indeed. Senators Maize, Hirono, and Jeff Merkley, thank you very much. Maria and Teresa will be back.
Thank you.
Thank you all. More AM after the break.